Imagine waking up tomorrow and the money in your bank account is worthless. Not worth less. Worthless. Your savings, your retirement, your paycheck, gone. Not stolen. Not taxed away. Just worthless. A number on a screen that can't buy you anything. This isn't some dystopian movie. This has happened before. Germany 1923. People carried wheelbarrows full of cash to buy bread. Zimbabwe 2008. $100 trillion bills couldn't buy groceries. Venezuela right now, today. Doctors and teachers digging through trash to survive. And it could happen to the United States dollar. The world's most powerful currency. The foundation of the global economy. The reason America has lived beyond its means for decades. That dollar. It could collapse. And when it does, everything changes. Everything. I'm not here to fearmonger. I'm here to walk you through exactly what happens when a currency collapses. The sequence of events. The timeline. What you'd see on the streets. What happens to your life. Because understanding this isn't about panic. It's about preparation. It's about knowing what's possible so you're not blindsided if the impossible becomes reality. The US dollar has been the world's reserve currency since 1944. 80 years of dominance. But nothing lasts forever. Empires fall. Currencies die. It's happened to every reserve currency in history. The British pound. The Dutch guilder. The Spanish dollar. They all thought they were invincible too. They were all wrong. So what happens if the dollar collapses? Let's walk through it. Step by step. Day by day. And by the end, you'll understand why some people are terrified, and why you should at least be paying attention. A currency doesn't collapse overnight. It's a process. A slow bleed that suddenly becomes a hemorrhage. And it always starts with loss of confidence. That's the key. Money only works because people believe in it. The moment that belief cracks, everything unravels. For the dollar, the trigger could be debt. The United States owes $34 trillion right now. That number grows by $1 trillion every 100 days. At some point, the world looks at that debt and asks a simple question. Will America ever pay this back? And if the answer is no, or even maybe not, confidence shatters. It could be inflation. Not the inflation we've seen recently, 3%, 5%, even 8%. That's annoying but manageable. I'm talking about real inflation. 10%. 20%. 40%. When prices double every year, people panic. They lose faith in the currency. They start looking for alternatives. It could be geopolitical. If countries stop using the dollar for international trade, if they stop holding dollar reserves, demand for dollars drops. And when demand drops, value drops. China, Russia, India, Brazil, they're already working on alternatives. Slowly. Quietly. But it's happening. The dollar's dominance isn't guaranteed. Or it could be a crisis. A war. A financial crash worse than 2008. A debt default. Some sudden shock that breaks the system. And once it breaks, once people see the cracks, the panic begins. And panic is contagious. Fear spreads faster than reason. Whatever the trigger, the result is the same. People lose faith in the dollar. They stop wanting to hold it. They try to get rid of it. They exchange it for anything else. Gold. Foreign currency. Assets. Goods. Anything that holds value better than paper. And that's when the collapse accelerates. The first 48 hours would be chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. It starts with the news. Breaking reports. Emergency broadcasts. The dollar is crashing. Markets are in free fall. Experts are panicking. And suddenly, everyone realizes at the same time that their money might be worthless soon. What do people do? They rush to banks. They want their cash. Not because cash will be worth anything, but because it feels safer than a number on a screen. Banks would be overwhelmed. Lines around the block. ATMs emptied in hours. But here's the thing. Banks don't keep everyone's money in a vault. They lend it out. So when everyone shows up at once demanding their deposits, banks can't pay. Bank runs. Just like the Great Depression. Then people rush to stores. Not because they need things. Because they want to spend their dollars before they become worthless. Grocery stores mobbed. Electronic stores cleaned out. Gas stations drained. People buying anything, everything, just to convert cash into goods. Shelves empty in hours. Prices skyrocket. A loaf of bread that cost $5 yesterday costs $50 today. By tomorrow, $500. Simultaneously, the stock market collapses. Investors dump everything. Retirement accounts evaporate. Pensions vanish. Decades of savings gone in a day. The Dow drops 10,000 points. 20,000. Circuit breakers trigger. Trading halts. But it doesn't stop the panic. It just delays it. Credit cards stop working. Why would businesses accept payment in a currency that's collapsing? Cash becomes worthless, but digital dollars are even worse. Transactions freeze. The economy grinds to a halt. People with food can't buy gas. People with gas can't buy food. The system that connects everything, that makes modern life possible, it breaks. And once it breaks, everything dependent on it breaks too. Within 48 hours, society as you know it would be fundamentally different. And it would only get worse. By the end of week 1, the immediate panic has settled into grim reality. The initial chaos of bank runs and store looting is over. Not because things got better. Because there's nothing left to loot. Stores are empty. Banks are closed. ATMs are dark. And people are starting to understand. This isn't temporary. This is the new normal. Hyperinflation sets in. Prices don't just rise. They explode. What cost $100 on Monday costs $1,000 on Friday. People paid on Friday find their paycheck worthless by Monday. Workers demand payment in something other than dollars. Food, goods, gold, anything but paper. Employers who can't pay in alternatives lose workers. Businesses close. Unemployment spikes. Supply chains collapse completely. Trucks stop delivering. Why would a trucker work for dollars that lose value by the hour? Farmers stop selling. Why trade food for worthless paper? The entire logistics network that keeps cities fed, that keeps shelves stocked, it depends on a functioning currency. When the currency fails, the system fails. Cities starve. Not immediately. But within days. Violence increases. Looting becomes organized. Gangs take over neighborhoods. Police struggle to maintain order, but many officers stop showing up. Why risk your life for a paycheck in worthless currency? The social contract, the thin veneer of civilization that keeps people civil, it's based on economic stability. When the economy collapses, that contract breaks. And people revert to survival mode. The government tries to respond. Emergency measures. Price controls. Rationing. Curfews. But it's too little, too late. You can't legislate confidence back into a currency. You can't force people to accept worthless paper. The government's power is based on its ability to pay soldiers, police, bureaucrats. When it can't pay them in anything they value, its power evaporates. By the end of week 1, America would look like a different country. And the worst is still ahead. 1 month in, society has fractured completely. The United States as a unified nation barely exists. Different regions operate under different rules. Some cities implement martial law. Others descend into anarchy. Rural areas fare better, small communities banding together, relying on barter and local production. But cities, dependent on complex supply chains and imported everything, they suffer catastrophically. A barter economy emerges. People trade goods for goods. Services for food. Skills for shelter. A mechanic fixes your car in exchange for vegetables. A doctor treats your kid for a tank of gas. Money, in the traditional sense, is dead. But humans always find a way to trade. It's just slower, less efficient, more difficult. Modern conveniences disappear. Precious metals become the new currency. Gold. Silver. People who stashed them are suddenly wealthy. People who trusted banks and stocks are destitute. There's a massive wealth transfer, not based on merit or hard work, but on who had the foresight to hold tangible assets. The rules of wealth have changed overnight. International aid tries to help. The UN, other countries, they send food and supplies. But distribution is chaotic. Who controls the aid? Who decides who gets it? Corruption is rampant. Warlords emerge, controlling resources and territory. America, the former superpower, reduced to a failed state accepting handouts. Healthcare collapses. Hospitals run out of supplies. Medicine is hoarded or sold on black markets at insane prices. Insulin, blood pressure medication, antibiotics, if you need them to survive, you're in trouble. People die from treatable conditions. Not because doctors don't exist, but because the system that supports modern medicine has disintegrated. Technology becomes useless. Your smartphone? A paperweight. The internet? Spotty at best, gone at worst. Servers need electricity. Electricity needs payment. Payment needs a functioning currency. The digital world that defined modern Lee. But the dollar collapse isn't just an American problem. It's a global catastrophe. The dollar isn't just money. It's the foundation of international trade, the reserve currency held by every major country, the benchmark for commodity pricing. When it collapses, the entire world economy collapses with it. Countries holding US debt, treasury bonds, they're wiped out overnight. China holds over $1 trillion in US treasuries. Japan, another $1 trillion. European nations, hundreds of billions. That wealth, those reserves, gone. Evaporated. Their economies crater. Their currencies destabilize. The contagion spreads. International trade freezes. Oil is priced in dollars. When the dollar is worthless, how do you buy oil? Countries scramble for alternatives. Gold-backed trade. Barter agreements. Regional currencies. But the transition is chaotic. Global supply chains, already fragile, completely break. Ships sit idle in ports. Cargo rots. Trade, the engine of the global economy, stops. Developing nations suffer worst. They depend on dollar-denominated loans and aid. When the dollar collapses, those loans become unpayable or meaningless. Countries default. Governments fall. Civil wars erupt. The instability spreads like wildfire. Regions that were already fragile, the Middle East, parts of Africa, South America, they descend into chaos. Europe tries to position the euro as the new reserve currency. But Europe has its own massive problems. Debt crises. Political divisions. Can the euro handle the weight? Can it fill the void? Maybe. But the transition would be brutal. Years of economic depression. Mass unemployment. Social unrest. China sees an opportunity. The yuan as the new global currency. They've been preparing for this. But a Chinese-dominated financial system looks very different from an American one. Different rules. Different values. Less transparency. More control. The balance of global power shifts dramatically, and not in a direction that favors democracy or freedom. The world order, the Pax Americana that's existed since World War II, it ends. What replaces it is uncertain, unstable, and likely more dangerous. Years after the collapse, what does America look like? It depends on how the government responds, how communities adapt, how resilient the people are. But one thing is certain. It's not the same country. The most likely scenario is fragmentation. The federal government, unable to pay or control, loses authority. States assert independence. Some states form regional alliances. The West Coast. The South. The Midwest. Texas goes its own way. It's not official secession, but in practice, the United States operates as several loosely connected regions, each with its own currency, laws, and leadership. Some regions recover faster than others. Areas with agriculture, natural resources, energy production, they stabilize. They produce what they need. They trade with neighbors. Life is harder, simpler, but survivable. Urban areas dependent on imports, on complex systems, they struggle for years. Populations migrate. Cities shrink. Infrastructure crumbles. A new currency eventually emerges. Maybe backed by gold or silver. Maybe a digital currency controlled regionally. Maybe a basket of commodities. But it takes years to build trust. And in the meantime, barter and precious metals dominate. The economy is a fraction of what it was. GDP collapses. Living standards plummet. America goes from first world to second world, maybe third world in some areas. Politically, authoritarianism rises. Desperate people accept strong leaders who promise order and security, even at the cost of freedom. Democratic norms, already strained, break entirely in some regions. Militias, warlords, local strongmen fill power vacuums. The idea of a unified American identity fades. People identify with their region, their community, their tribe. Globally, America's influence evaporates. No more world police. No more foreign aid. No more military bases in 100 countries. Other powers fill the void. China, Russia, regional blocs. The world becomes more multipolar, more unstable, more prone to conflict. For the average person, life is about survival, not prosperity. You work to eat. You eat to live. Luxuries are gone. Security is uncertain. The future is unpredictable. It's a hard, unforgiving existence. So what do you do with this information? Panic? Hide under your bed? No. You prepare intelligently. You hedge your bets. You don't bet everything on the dollar's collapse, but you don't ignore the possibility either. First, diversify your assets. Don't keep everything in cash or in dollar-denominated investments. Hold some precious metals. Gold, silver, they've been stores of value for thousands of years. They'll retain value if the dollar doesn't. Not as a get-rich scheme, but as insurance. Second, reduce debt. Debt is denominated in dollars. If the dollar collapses, your debt becomes worthless too, right? Maybe. But in the chaos, lenders might demand payment in other forms. Or the government might revalue debt into a new currency at unfavorable rates. Better to not owe anything. Third, build skills and relationships. In a collapsed economy, what matters is what you can do and who you know. Learn to grow food. Fix things. Provide medical care. Build. Create. Skills that have tangible value. And build strong community ties. In hard times, people survive together, not alone. Fourth, have essentials on hand. Not prepper-level bunkers, but reasonable supplies. Food that lasts. Water filtration. Basic medical supplies. Not because you're expecting doomsday next week, but because if things go bad, stores empty fast. Fifth, stay informed but don't obsess. Watch economic indicators. Debt levels. Inflation rates. International developments. If things start looking really bad, you have time to act. But don't let fear control your life. The collapse might not happen. Or it might happen slowly enough to adapt. Sixth, vote and advocate for responsible policy. Demand fiscal responsibility. Pressure politicians to address debt. Support sound money policies. The collapse isn't inevitable. It's a choice. A choice to keep borrowing, keep printing, keep ignoring reality. We can choose differently. The dollar collapse is a possibility, not a certainty. But ignoring possibilities doesn't make them go away. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. And whatever happens, you'll be ready.